Have you ever felt betrayed, abandoned, or forgotten? In those moments of deep hurt and confusion, it's easy to question whether there's any purpose to our pain. But what if I told you that even in your darkest hours, there's a greater plan unfolding? Today, we're going to explore a story that has captivated hearts for thousands of years, the story of Joseph. His journey from favored son to forgotten prisoner to powerful leader isn't just an ancient tale. It's a testament to God's faithfulness that still speaks to us today. Joseph's story is one of incredible highs and devastating lows. Imagine being your father's favorite, gifted with prophetic dreams, only to find yourself thrown into a pit by your own brothers, sold into slavery, and later imprisoned for a crime you didn't commit. It's the kind of betrayal and injustice that could easily break a person's spirit. But here's where Joseph's story takes an unexpected turn. Instead of becoming bitter or losing hope, Joseph held on to his faith. He trusted that God was with him, even when everything seemed to be falling apart. And as we follow his journey, we see how each painful experience was actually preparing him for an incredible purpose. You see, Joseph's story isn't just about one man's triumph over adversity. It's a powerful reminder that God can use our trials to shape us, strengthen us, and position us for things we never could have imagined. When Joseph interpreted Pharaoh's dreams and rose to become second in command of Egypt, he wasn't just achieving personal success. He was being placed in a position to save countless lives, including the very family that had betrayed him. Perhaps you're wondering, what does this ancient story have to do with me? Well, let me ask you, have you ever faced a situation that seemed hopeless? Have you ever wondered if God has forgotten about you, or if your dreams will ever come true? Joseph's story reminds us that God's silence doesn't mean his absence. Sometimes what looks like a detour is actually the path to our destiny. In our world of instant gratification, Joseph's story teaches us the value of patience and perseverance. It took years for God's plan to unfold in Joseph's life. There were moments when it must have seemed like all hope was lost. But through it all, Joseph remained faithful, using his gifts to serve others wherever he found himself. This story challenges us to look at our own trials differently. What if the difficulties you're facing right now are actually preparing you for something greater? What if God is using this time to develop character, skills, or relationships that will be crucial for your future? Joseph's story also teaches us about forgiveness and reconciliation. When he finally came face to face with the brothers who had betrayed him, Joseph chose mercy over revenge. He recognized that what they meant for evil, God had used for good. This profound perspective shift allowed healing not just for Joseph, but for his entire family. As we reflect on Joseph's journey, we're invited to examine our own lives. Are there areas where we need to trust God's plan, even when we can't see the whole picture? Are there people we need to forgive, recognizing that our pain might be part of a greater purpose? Joseph's story matters because it reminds us that we're part of a bigger narrative. Our individual stories, with all their twists and turns, are woven into God's grand tapestry of redemption. Just as Joseph couldn't see how his suffering would lead to salvation for many, we often can't see how our current challenges are shaping us for future blessings. So today, I want to encourage you, don't give up hope. Your story isn't over yet. The God who was with Joseph in the pit, in the prison, and in the palace is with you too. He sees your pain. He knows your potential. In the quiet stillness of a starry night, young Joseph tossed and turned on his bed, his mind filled with vivid images that danced behind his closed eyelids. As the cool desert breeze whispered through the tent, he found himself transported to a sun-drenched field, golden stalks of wheat swaying gently in the wind. Suddenly, the sheaves of wheat began to move of their own accord. Joseph watched in awe as his own sheaf rose up, standing tall and proud among the others. To his amazement, the surrounding sheaves bowed down before his, as if paying homage to a king. The dream faded, but its impact lingered, leaving Joseph with a sense of wonder and confusion. The next morning, excitement bubbled within him as he rushed to share his dream with his family. His brothers gathered around, their faces a mix of curiosity and skepticism. As Joseph recounted the strange vision, he noticed a shift in their expressions. What began as mild interest quickly turned to disbelief, then to something darker, a flicker of jealousy in their eyes. Undeterred by their reaction, Joseph's nights continued to be filled with extraordinary visions. In another dream, he saw the sun, moon, and 11 stars bowing down to him. This time, even his father Jacob raised an eyebrow, gently rebuking him for his seemingly grandiose ideas. Little did Joseph know that these dreams were seeds planted by God, tiny glimpses of a future yet to unfold. They were like puzzle pieces, scattered and incomplete, hinting at a grand design that was far beyond his young mind's comprehension. As the days passed, the dreams became a source of both wonder and tension in Joseph's family. His brothers, already resentful of their father's favoritism, found these visions to be the final straw. The once playful teasing turned into bitter remarks and cold shoulders. Joseph, in his youthful innocence, couldn't understand why his brothers seemed to drift further away with each passing day. What Joseph didn't realize was that God often works in mysterious ways, planting visions of greatness long before their fulfillment. It's as if the Almighty is an expert gardener, carefully sowing seeds of destiny in the fertile soil of our lives. These seeds may lie dormant for years, weathering storms and droughts, before finally breaking through the surface and blossoming into something beautiful. For Joseph, these dreams were not just flights of fancy or the product of an overactive imagination. They were divine whispers, gentle nudges guiding him towards a future role that would impact not just his family, but entire nations. Yet, the path to that future was not to be smooth or easy. The jealousy that sparked in his brothers' hearts would soon ignite into a raging fire of betrayal. Joseph's colorful coat, a symbol of his father's love, would become stained with deceit and hatred. The dreamer would find himself cast into a pit, sold into slavery, and carried off to a foreign land. But even in the darkest moments, when all seemed lost, those early dreams would flicker like distant stars, reminding Joseph of a promise yet to be fulfilled. Through years of hardship and trials, the seeds planted by God in those nighttime visions would slowly take root, growing stronger with each challenge overcome. It's a powerful reminder that our present circumstances don't always reflect our future destiny. God's plans often unfold in ways we can't imagine, using unlikely people and impossible situations to bring about His purposes. Joseph's journey from favored son to forgotten prisoner to powerful leader is a testament to the patience and faithfulness of God. It shows us that the visions and dreams He plants in our hearts are not mere fantasies, but glimpses of a future He is carefully orchestrating. As we reflect on Joseph's story, we're challenged to look at our own lives with fresh eyes. What seeds of destiny has God planted in your heart? What dreams or visions have you dismissed as impossible or forgotten in the face of life's challenges? Perhaps, like Joseph, you're in a season where those dreams seem further away than ever. In the depths of a dark pit, a young man lay broken and betrayed. Joseph, the favored son of Jacob, now found himself at the mercy of his own flesh and blood. The anguish in his heart was palpable, a wound so deep it threatened to consume him whole. Can you imagine the pain, the confusion, the overwhelming sense of abandonment? Joseph's own brothers, driven by jealousy and hatred, had plotted against him. They had torn away his colorful coat, a symbol of their father's love, and cast him into this cold, unforgiving hole in the ground. As Joseph lay there, surrounded by the suffocating darkness, his mind raced with questions. Why? Why would his brothers do this to him? What had he done to deserve such cruelty? The weight of their betrayal pressed down on him, threatening to crush his spirit. But even in this moment of despair, a small flicker of hope remained. Joseph, raised in a family that knew the promises of God, clung to the belief that there must be a greater purpose to his suffering. Little did he know that this pit was just the beginning of a journey that would shape not only his life, but the fate of nations. The sound of approaching footsteps broke through Joseph's thoughts. His heart raced as he heard unfamiliar voices above. Rough hands reached down, pulling him from the pit. For a brief moment, relief washed over him, until he realized the true horror of his situation. His brothers, the very ones who should have protected him, were selling him into slavery. The pain of this new betrayal cut even deeper than the first. As Joseph was led away, bound and afraid, he caught one last glimpse of his brothers. Their faces, once familiar and loved, now seemed like masks of indifference and cruelty. The caravan of Ishmaelite traders moved swiftly, carrying Joseph further and further from everything he had ever known. With each step, the reality of his situation sank in. He was no longer the favored son, draped in a coat of many colors. He was now a slave, stripped of his identity and his future. As the sun set on that fateful day, Joseph found himself in a foreign land, surrounded by strangers who saw him as nothing more than property. The darkness of night mirrored the darkness in his soul. How could he go on? How could he find the strength to face each new day? Yet even in this pit of despair, a small voice whispered to Joseph's heart. It reminded him of the dreams he had once had, dreams of greatness and purpose. Could it be that even this terrible betrayal was somehow part of a greater plan? As Joseph lay on the cold ground that night, tears streaming down his face, he made a choice. He chose to hold on to hope. He chose to believe that somehow, some way, God would use even this pain for good. Little did Joseph know that his journey was far from over. The pit and the betrayal were just the beginning. Ahead lay years of hardship, false accusations, and imprisonment. But with each trial, Joseph's faith would grow stronger. With each setback, his character would be refined. And one day, far in the future, Joseph would stand before his brothers again. But this time, he would not be a slave or a prisoner. He would be a ruler, second only to Pharaoh himself. And in that moment, Joseph would understand the truth that had sustained him through every dark night and every painful day. What his brothers had intended for evil, God had used for good. The pit of betrayal had become the first step on a path to greatness. Joseph's story would become a testament to the power of forgiveness and the mysterious ways in which God works to fulfill his promises. As we reflect on Joseph's journey, we are reminded that our own pits, our moments of betrayal, loss, and despair, may also be part of a greater plan. Like Joseph, we may not understand the purpose of our pain in the moment, but if we hold on to hope, if we trust in a God who can bring light out of darkness, we too may find that our deepest wounds become the source of our greatest blessings. For, in the end, it is not the depth of the pit that defines us, but the height to which we rise when we emerge from it. Joseph's story challenges us to look beyond our present circumstances, to trust in a plan greater than our own understanding, and to believe that even in our darkest moments, hope remains. In the depths of adversity, a light shines brightest. Such was the story of Joseph, a young man sold into slavery in Egypt. Yet even in the darkest moments of his life, God's presence never left him. Picture this: a bustling Egyptian household, the grand estate of Potiphar, one of Pharaoh's officials. Amidst the chaos of servants scurrying about, one figure stands out. It's Joseph, working diligently, his face etched with determination. Despite his circumstances, there's an unmistakable aura of peace surrounding him. You see, Joseph wasn't just any slave. He was a man blessed by God, and that blessing was evident in everything he did. As he went about his daily tasks, whether it was managing the household affairs or tending to Potiphar's needs, Joseph's work was marked by excellence. It wasn't long before Potiphar noticed that everything Joseph touched seemed to prosper. Imagine the surprise on Potiphar's face as he watched his household flourish under Joseph's care. Crops yielded more abundantly, livestock multiplied, and even the smallest tasks were completed with remarkable efficiency. It was as if an invisible hand was guiding Joseph's every move. And indeed there was, for the Lord was with Joseph, blessing him in all that he did. Even in the confines of slavery, God's favor rested upon him. It's a powerful reminder that God's presence isn't limited by our circumstances. He meets us right where we are, even in the lowest of places. As we watch Joseph's story unfold, we see a man who refused to let his situation define him. Instead, he allowed God's presence to transform his captivity into an opportunity for growth and influence. With each passing day, Joseph's responsibilities grew. Potiphar, recognizing the source of Joseph's success, entrusted him with more and more. Visualize Joseph, once a slave, now overseeing Potiphar's entire household. His hands, once bound by chains, now hold the keys to prosperity. It's a testament to the transformative power of God's presence in our lives. But Joseph's story isn't just about personal success. It's about the ripple effect of a life lived in God's presence. As Joseph prospered, so did those around him. Potiphar's household experienced blessings they had never known before. It's a beautiful picture of how God can use us to be a blessing to others, even in the most unlikely circumstances. Friends, Joseph's story speaks to us today. It reminds us that no matter where we find ourselves, God is there. In the office cubicle that feels like a prison, in the home that seems more like a battlefield, in the hospital room that echoes with uncertainty. God is there, ready to bless us and make His presence known. Like Joseph, we have a choice. We can focus on our circumstances, or we can focus on God's presence. We can let our situation define us, or we can let God's blessing transform our situation. The choice is ours. So today, wherever you are, whatever you're facing, remember Joseph. Remember that God's presence isn't confined to church buildings or mountaintop experiences. He's right there with you, in the trenches of everyday life, ready to bless you and make you a blessing to others. Let's take a moment to reflect. Where do you need to recognize God's presence in your life today? In what areas do you need His blessing? Like Joseph, you too can prosper, not because of your circumstances, but because of the God who is with you. As we close, let's carry this truth with us. The Lord was with Joseph, and He is with us too. In every task, in a world where temptation lurks around every corner, one man's unwavering integrity shines like a beacon of hope. Picture this: a young, handsome servant named Joseph, rising through the ranks in the household of Potiphar, a powerful Egyptian official. His success is undeniable, his future bright. But darkness creeps in, threatening to extinguish the light of his righteousness. Potiphar's wife, a woman of beauty and influence, sets her sights on Joseph. Her advances are relentless, her intentions clear. Day after day she pursues him, her words dripping with honey and poison. "Lie with me," she whispers, her eyes gleaming with desire. But Joseph stands firm, his resolve unshakable. In a moment of crisis, Joseph faces a choice that will define his character for generations to come. Alone in the house with Potiphar's wife, her hand grasping his garment, he must decide between fleeting pleasure and enduring honor. With strength that comes from deep within, Joseph tears himself away, leaving his cloak behind but his integrity intact. Visualize Joseph's powerful stride as he walks away from temptation, his back straight, his gaze fixed ahead. Each step he takes is a testament to his unwavering commitment to what is right. The ground beneath his feet seems to tremble with the weight of his moral victory. But the path of righteousness is rarely smooth. Potiphar's wife, scorned and vengeful, twists the truth, painting Joseph as the aggressor. Her lies spread like wildfire, and soon Joseph finds himself cast into prison, punished for a crime he did not commit. Yet even in the depths of his unjust imprisonment, Joseph's integrity remains unbroken. His character, forged in the fires of temptation and hardship, shines even brighter in the darkness of his cell. For Joseph understands a truth that many fail to grasp. True strength lies not in succumbing to our basest desires, but in rising above them. As we reflect on Joseph's story, we are challenged to examine our own lives. How often do we face similar crossroads, where the easy path beckons with promises of immediate gratification? How many times have we been tempted to compromise our values for a moment's pleasure or advantage? Joseph's example calls us to a higher standard. It reminds us that integrity is not a garment to be shed when inconvenient, but an essential part of who we are. His story teaches us that the choices we make in private shape our public character, and that true success is measured not by our possessions or position, but by the strength of our moral fiber. Imagine the inner turmoil Joseph must have faced. The allure of Potiphar's wife was not just physical. It represented power, comfort, and favor in a foreign land. Yet Joseph chose to honor his master, his God, and himself by refusing to betray his principles. His decision cost him dearly in the short term, but it laid the foundation for a legacy that would endure for millennia. As we navigate our own lives, let us draw inspiration from Joseph's courage. When faced with temptation, visualize yourself walking away with the same strength and determination. Picture the invisible mantle of integrity draping your shoulders, growing stronger with each moral victory. Remember, every time we choose right over wrong, truth over lies, and integrity over compromise, we add another brick to the edifice of our character. Like Joseph, we may face false accusations and unjust consequences for our righteousness. But take heart, for a clear conscience and an unblemished soul are treasures beyond price. In a world that often celebrates moral flexibility and situational ethics, be the Joseph of your generation. Stand firm in your convictions, even when it costs you. For in the end, it is not the easy choices that define us, but the difficult ones we make when everything is on the line. Let Joseph's story be a rallying cry for all. Picture a dark, cold prison cell. The walls are damp, the air is heavy, and hope seems distant. But even here, in this place of confinement and despair, a sliver of light breaks through. This is the story of Joseph, a man wrongly imprisoned, but never truly alone. Joseph's tale is one that might resonate with many of us. We've all faced moments when life seems unfair, when we're punished for things we didn't do. It's easy to feel abandoned, to think that God has forgotten us. But Joseph's experience tells us otherwise. Despite being unjustly accused and thrown into prison, Joseph didn't lose his faith. He didn't shake his fist at the sky or curse his fate. Instead, he held on to hope, trusting that God had a plan even when he couldn't see it. And you know what? God didn't disappoint. Even in that gloomy prison, God's presence was unmistakable. The Bible tells us that the Lord was with Joseph, showing him kindness and granting him favor in the eyes of the prison warden. It's a powerful reminder that God's love is unconfined by prison walls or limited by our circumstances. Imagine Joseph, day after day, facing the harsh realities of prison life. Yet, instead of being beaten down, he rose above his situation. The prison warden noticed something different about Joseph, something that set him apart. It was yet just his attitude or his work ethic. It was the undeniable presence of God in his life. Soon, Joseph was put in charge of all the prisoners. Think about that for a moment. A prisoner, given authority over other prisoners. It's not something that happens every day, but God's favor made the impossible possible. Joseph's integrity and God's blessing worked hand in hand, creating opportunities even in the most unlikely places. Now, you might be thinking, that's great for Joseph, but what about me? I'm facing my own prison. Maybe not literal bars and chains, but circumstances that feel just as confining. Well, friend, Joseph's story isn't just ancient history. It's a living testament to God's faithfulness, a promise that extends to you and me today. When we feel trapped by life's unfair twists and turns, when we're tempted to believe that God has forgotten us, Joseph's experience calls us to look closer, to see the light breaking through the cracks in our own prisons, to recognize God's presence even when, especially when, everything seems darkest. Remember, Joseph didn't know how his story would end. He couldn't see the bigger picture, couldn't understand why he was suffering, but he chose to trust, to remain faithful, to do his best right where he was, and God honored that faith, using Joseph's prison time as preparation for an even greater purpose. So if you're feeling wrongly accused, unfairly treated, or trapped in circumstances beyond your control, take heart. God sees you. He hasn't abandoned you. Just as he was with Joseph in that ancient Egyptian prison, he's with you now, working behind the scenes in ways you might not yet recognize. Your prison might be a difficult job, a challenging relationship, or a health struggle. Whatever it is, know this: God's favor isn't limited by your location or your situation. His light can break through the darkest places. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the prison walls, Joseph found himself in a place he never expected to be. Yet even in the depths of confinement, God's favor shone upon him like a beacon of hope. In the stillness of the night, two men tossed and turned, their minds filled with vivid dreams that left them troubled and confused. These weren't ordinary prisoners. They were the cupbearer and baker of Pharaoh himself, now sharing Joseph's fate behind iron bars. As dawn broke, Joseph noticed their distressed faces. With compassion in his eyes, he asked, "Why do you look so troubled today?" Little did they know that this simple question would set in motion a chain of events that would change not only their lives, but the course of history itself. The cupbearer spoke first, his voice trembling with uncertainty. "We each had a dream," he said, "but there is no one to interpret them." Joseph's eyes lit up, recognizing an opportunity to use his God-given gift. "Do not interpretations belong to God?" he replied gently. "Tell me your dreams." As the cupbearer recounted his vision, images of lush grapevines and ripe clusters filled the air. 3 branches budded, blossomed, and bore fruit in rapid succession. In his hand, he held Pharaoh's cup, pressing the grapes into it as he had done so many times before. Joseph listened intently, his mind decoding the symbols as clearly as if he were reading a familiar story. With a smile, he delivered the good news. "The 3 branches are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your position." Hope blossomed in the cupbearer's eyes, but Joseph wasn't finished. He added a humble request. "Remember me when it is well with you. Please do me the kindness to mention me to Pharaoh, and so get me out of this place." Encouraged by the positive interpretation, the baker eagerly shared his dream. He described 3 baskets of bread balanced precariously on his head, with birds swooping down to feast on the contents of the topmost basket. Joseph's face grew solemn as he understood the meaning. With a heavy heart, he explained that the 3 baskets also represented 3 days, but the outcome would be different. Pharaoh would lift up the baker's head in a more literal sense, ending his life. As Joseph's words hung in the air, a profound lesson unfolded. Even in the darkest of circumstances, God's light can shine through us to touch the lives of others. Joseph didn't allow his own misfortune to blind him to the needs of those around him. Instead, he used his gift to bring clarity and, in one case, comfort to his fellow prisoners. 3 days passed, just as Joseph had foretold. The cupbearer was indeed restored to his position, while the baker met the fate Joseph had reluctantly predicted. It was a bittersweet moment, a reminder that God's plans often unfold in ways we cannot fully understand. Yet, as the cupbearer returned to his life of luxury, he forgot about Joseph. The young interpreter remained in prison, seemingly forgotten by the world outside. But God had not forgotten him. This moment of disappointment was merely a pause in a greater story that was still unfolding. Joseph's experience teaches tick-tock, tick-tock. The sound of a clock echoes through an empty room. Time seems to stand still, yet it marches on relentlessly. In the quiet moments of waiting, we often feel forgotten, left behind, abandoned. But what if I told you that even in those silent hours, you are not alone? Picture Joseph, a young man with dreams as vast as the starry sky. He found himself in a foreign land, imprisoned for a crime he didn't commit. The days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Each sunrise brought hope, each sunset disappointment. The prison walls seemed to close in, suffocating his dreams. Then came a glimmer of hope. The royal cupbearer, a fellow prisoner, was released and restored to his position. Joseph had interpreted his dream and in return asked only to be remembered. But when all goes well with you, he had said, remember me and show me kindness. Mention me to Pharaoh and get me out of this prison. The cupbearer walked free, his feet light with newfound freedom. Joseph watched him go, his heart beating with anticipation. Surely this was his ticket out. Surely his time had come. But the days passed. The sun rose and set. The moon waxed and waned, and Joseph remained forgotten. Have you ever felt like Joseph, waiting for that phone call, that job offer, that relationship to blossom? The clock on the wall seems to mock you, its hands moving slower than ever before. You wonder if you've been forgotten, if your dreams have died in the waiting. But here's the truth that Joseph knew, even in his darkest hours. Delay is not denial. God's silence is not his absence. His timing is not our timing. You see, while the cupbearer forgot Joseph, God never did. Every moment in that prison was preparing Joseph for a purpose greater than he could imagine. Every day of waiting was strengthening his character, refining his faith, and positioning him for a future he couldn't yet see. Imagine a seed planted in the ground. To the naked eye, nothing seems to be happening. The soil looks barren, lifeless, but beneath the surface, roots are growing, stretching deep into the earth. That's you, in your waiting. You may feel forgotten, but you are being fortified. Every tick is a heartbeat of hope, every talk a whisper of promise. Joseph's story didn't end in that prison. 2 full years later, when the time was right, God moved. The cupbearer suddenly remembered Pharaoh had a dream, and Joseph was called from the pit to the palace. And one day, everything changed. Your story doesn't end in the waiting either. Your dreams haven't died, they're developing. Your purpose hasn't been forgotten. It's being fine-tuned. The God who sees every sparrow fall, who numbers the hairs on your head, has not forgotten you. So, as you wait, remember this. You are not forgotten. You are not forsaken. You are being prepared. The clock may seem slow, but it's ticking towards your destiny. The waiting room may feel lonely, but it's a launching pad for your purpose. Hold on to hope. Cling to faith. Trust in the God who is working behind the scenes, even when you can't see it. Your time is coming. Your breakthrough is on its way. And when it arrives, you'll look back and see that every moment of waiting was worth it. The clock keeps ticking. But now, instead of a reminder of what hasn't happened, let it be a promise of what's to come. You are not forgotten. You are not forsaken. You are being fashioned for greatness. So wait with hope, wait with expectation, wait with the knowledge that the God who began a good work in you will be faithful to complete it. Your Joseph moment is coming, and when it does, the world will see that you were never forgotten. In the depths of a prison cell, a man named Joseph lay forgotten. His dreams of greatness had long since faded, replaced by the harsh reality of iron bars and stone walls. But little did he know, his moment was about to arrive. The palace of Pharaoh stood in stark contrast to Joseph's grim surroundings. Golden pillars reached towards the heavens, and the air was thick with the scent of exotic incense. Yet even here, in the lap of luxury, all was not well. Pharaoh tossed and turned on his opulent bed, his brow furrowed with worry. Night after night, strange dreams plagued his sleep. Visions of fat cows devoured by emaciated ones, of plump ears of grain swallowed by withered husks. The weight of these enigmatic images bore down upon him like his heavy crown. The wisest men in Egypt were summoned, their robes swishing as they hurried through the palace corridors. But none could unravel the mystery of Pharaoh's dreams. The king's frustration grew, his power rendered useless against the riddles of his own mind. It was then that a memory stirred in the mind of Pharaoh's cupbearer. A forgotten face, a promise unkept. There was a young Hebrew in prison, he whispered, his voice barely audible in the tense silence of the throne room. He interpreted dreams. The wheels of fate began to turn. Guards were dispatched, their sandals echoing through the dungeons. Joseph was pulled from the shadows, blinking in the harsh light of day. His chains were struck off, his prison rags replaced with clean linen. In an instant, his world had changed. As Joseph stood before Pharaoh, the air crackled with anticipation. The once prisoner gazed upon the most powerful man in Egypt, his heart pounding but his faith unwavering. "It is not in me," Joseph said humbly. "God will give Pharaoh the answer he desires." And so, with divine insight, Joseph unraveled the mystery. 7 years of plenty, followed by 7 years of devastating famine. The fat cows and plump grain devoured by their withered counterparts. A warning from God himself. Pharaoh's eyes widened as understanding dawned. The crown upon his head seemed to grow lighter as the burden of uncertainty lifted. But Joseph wasn't finished. With wisdom beyond his years, he outlined a plan to save Egypt from the coming disaster. The throne room erupted in murmurs of amazement. Pharaoh's advisors exchanged glances. From the depths of despair to the heights of power, Joseph's journey is a testament to the unwavering hand of God. Behold, as we witness the extraordinary rise of a humble servant to become the second most powerful man in all of Egypt. Picture this: Joseph, once cast into a pit by his own brothers, now stands tall in the gleaming halls of Pharaoh's palace. The golden light of triumph bathes his face as he receives the signet ring, symbol of ultimate authority. What a sight to behold! But how did this miraculous transformation come to pass? It was through Joseph, his unwavering faith, and God's divine plan that he ascended from the depths of a prison cell to the lofty heights of power. When all seemed lost, Joseph's ability to interpret dreams caught the attention of Pharaoh himself. And oh, what dreams they were! 7 years of abundance followed by 7 years of famine, a vision that would shape the destiny of an entire nation. Impressed by Joseph's wisdom and insight, Pharaoh saw in him a man of extraordinary capability. "Can we find anyone like this man, one in whom is the Spirit of God?" he declared to his officials. And with those words, Joseph's fate was sealed. In a breathtaking moment, Pharaoh bestowed upon him the title of vizier, second only to the throne itself. Imagine the scene as Joseph is adorned with the finest linen robes, a gold chain placed around his neck. The crowd gasps in awe as he is paraded through the streets in Pharaoh's second chariot, heralds crying out, "Bow down!" before him. What a glorious day for a man once forgotten in a prison cell. But Joseph's rise to power was not merely for his own glory. No, it was part of God's grand design to save his people from the impending famine. With his newfound authority, Joseph set about implementing a brilliant strategy to store up grain during the years of plenty. His foresight and leadership would prove crucial in the years to come. As the abundance gave way to scarcity, Joseph's wisdom shone brightly. The storehouses he had filled became a lifeline for Egypt and the surrounding nations. People from far and wide came to buy grain, bowing before the man they once scorned. What a turn of events! Yet through it all, Joseph remained humble, never forgetting the source of his strength. He named his sons Manasseh and Ephraim, testaments to God's faithfulness in making him fruitful in the land of his suffering. Even in the midst of his triumph, Joseph's heart remained fixed on the one who had brought him from the pit to the palace. As we reflect on Joseph's incredible journey, let us be filled with hope and wonder. For in his story, we see the power of perseverance, the triumph of faith, and the magnificent workings of God's plan. From the depths of despair to the pinnacle of power, Joseph's life stands as a shining example of what can happen when we trust in the Lord. So let us celebrate this remarkable tale of redemption and rise. Let the golden glow of Joseph's success inspire us to hold fast to our faith, even in the darkest of times. For who knows? Perhaps, like Joseph, we too may find ourselves lifted from the pit to the palace, all by the mighty hand of God. As the sun sets on this chapter of Joseph's life, we are left in awe of the incredible transformation we have witnessed. From a prisoner to a prince, from rejected to revered. Truly, with God, as the sun rises over golden fields of grain, we're reminded of God's abundant provision. In times of plenty and in times of need, His hand guides us through every season. Joseph's story in Genesis is a powerful testament to God's perfect timing and greater purpose. Though he faced betrayal, imprisonment, and years of hardship, Joseph remained faithful. Little did he know that God was positioning him for a crucial role in saving countless lives. When famine struck the land, Joseph's wisdom in storing up grain during the years of abundance became clear. As people from far and wide came seeking food, Joseph was there to meet their needs. His past trials had prepared him for this very moment. We too may face seasons of difficulty, wondering why we must endure such challenges. But like Joseph, our trials often prepare us for greater purpose. God sees the bigger picture, using our struggles to refine us and equip us to help others. As we see images of overflowing granaries and storehouses filled with food, we're reminded of God's provision. He gives us not just enough for ourselves, but abundance to share with those in need. Joseph's foresight in storing up grain allowed him to be a blessing to many nations during the famine. When we encounter those who are hungry, physically or spiritually, we have an opportunity to be God's hands and feet. Just as Joseph distributed grain to the hungry, we can offer nourishment to those around us. A warm meal, a listening ear, or words of hope can make all the difference to someone in need. God often works through ordinary people to accomplish extraordinary things. Joseph was just a young man when his brothers sold him into slavery. But God had a plan to use Joseph's gifts and experiences for a greater good. In the same way, God can use our unique abilities and circumstances to touch lives in ways we may never have imagined. As we reflect on Joseph's story, we're encouraged to trust in God's timing and purpose for our lives. Even when the path seems unclear or difficult, we can have faith that God is working all things together for good. Our present trials may be preparing us for future opportunities to be a blessing to others. The famine in Joseph's time lasted for 7 long years. But because of God's provision through Joseph's obedience, many lives were saved. In our own times of scarcity or struggle, we can hold on to the hope that God will provide. He is faithful to sustain us and use us to help sustain others. Let us be inspired by Joseph's example of faithfulness and stewardship. When God blesses us with abundance, may we use wisdom in storing up resources, not just for ourselves, but to share with those in need. And in times of lack, may we trust that God will provide, often in unexpected ways. As we go about our days, let's keep our eyes open for opportunities to be God's provision to others. A kind word, a helping hand, or sharing our resources can make a world of difference. We never know how God might use our small acts of obedience to impact many lives. In closing, remember that your current circumstances, whether joyful or challenging, are part of God's greater plan. Like Joseph, you may be being positioned for a purpose beyond what you can see. Trust in God's timing. Remain faithful in both abundance and in the depths of betrayal. A heart can harden, turning love into bitterness. But in the story of Joseph and his brothers, we witness the transformative power of forgiveness. Picture a young man, once favored, now standing before his brothers as a ruler in a foreign land. His eyes, once filled with dreams, now hold the weight of years of separation and pain. Yet, as Joseph gazes upon the very men who sold him into slavery, something remarkable stirs within his soul. The air is thick with tension as Joseph's brothers bow before him, unaware of his true identity. Their faces etched with worry, they plead for grain to feed their starving families. Little do they know that the man they wronged years ago now holds their fate in his hands. Joseph's heart races, a storm of emotions threatening to overwhelm him. Memories of being thrown into a pit, sold like cattle, and years of loneliness in Egypt flood his mind. The pain is still raw, the wounds still fresh. But amidst the turmoil, a small voice whispers of forgiveness. With trembling hands, Joseph removes his disguise. Tears stream down his face as he reveals himself to his astonished brothers. "I am Joseph," he chokes out, his voice thick with emotion. "Is my father still alive?" The brothers stand frozen, fear and disbelief etched on their faces. They expect anger, retribution, but instead, they witness a miracle of grace. Joseph, now a powerful man, chooses to embrace those who once cast him aside. In this moment, we see the true strength of forgiveness. It's not about forgetting the past or excusing wrongdoing. It's about choosing to release the burden of resentment and allowing healing to begin. Joseph's words ring out, filled with compassion. "Do not be distressed, and do not be angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you." In this act of forgiveness, Joseph not only frees his brothers from guilt, but also liberates himself from the chains of bitterness. The scene unfolds like a painting come to life. Tears flow freely as brothers who were once divided now cling to each other in a tight embrace. Years of separation melt away in the warmth of reconciliation. The wounds of the past begin to heal, replaced by the promise of a renewed future. This powerful moment reminds us that forgiveness is not weakness, but the ultimate display of strength. It takes courage to face those who have hurt us and choose love over vengeance. Joseph's story challenges us to examine our own hearts and ask, what relationships in our lives need the healing balm of forgiveness? As we witness this family reunited, we're reminded that forgiveness has the power to bridge even the widest chasms. It can restore what was thought to be irreparably broken and bring light to the darkest corners of our souls. Joseph's act of forgiveness ripples outward, affecting not just his immediate family, but an entire nation. By choosing reconciliation over revenge, he secures a future for his people during a time of great famine. His story shows us that when we forgive, we do not just change our own lives. We have the power to change the world around us. The image of Joseph and his brothers, locked in a tearful embrace, serves as a powerful reminder of the beauty that can emerge from even the most painful circumstances. It challenges us to look beyond our hurts and see the possibility of restoration. As the brothers prepare to return home, now reunited with Joseph and assured of his forgiveness, we're left with a profound sense of hope. In the darkest moments of our lives, when all seems lost and hope feels distant, God's perspective shines through like a beacon of light. Picture a broken chain, its links shattered and scattered. Now, watch as those fragments begin to glow, transforming into radiant beams that illuminate the path ahead. Joseph's story in Genesis reminds us of this profound truth. His brothers, driven by jealousy and hatred, sold him into slavery. they meant evil against him, plotting to destroy his future and crush his dreams. But God had a greater plan in motion. As we journey through life's trials, we often struggle to see beyond our immediate circumstances. We feel the weight of betrayal, the sting of rejection, and the pain of loss. In these moments, it's easy to question God's presence and His goodness. Yet, it's precisely in these times that His sovereignty is at work, weaving a tapestry of redemption that we can't yet comprehend. Joseph's path led him from the depths of a pit to the heights of power in Egypt. Through years of slavery, false accusations, and imprisonment, he held fast to his faith. Little did he know that God was using every hardship, every setback, to position him for a greater purpose. When famine struck the land, Joseph's position of authority allowed him to save not only Egypt, but also his own family, the very ones who had wronged him. In that moment of reunion, he uttered those powerful words, "You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good." This declaration is a testament to God's ability to transform our trials into triumphs. It's a reminder that His perspective far exceeds our limited understanding. Where we see only pain and suffering, He sees opportunities for growth, redemption, and the fulfillment of His promises. Consider the broken chains in your own life, the relationships that have crumbled, the dreams that have been dashed, the hopes that have been deferred. Now, imagine those fragments beginning to glow, each piece a testament to God's faithfulness and His power to bring beauty from ashes. In the midst of our trials, we're called to trust in God's sovereign plan. This doesn't mean we won't experience pain or doubt. Joseph surely had moments of despair during his years of hardship, but his story encourages us to persevere, to hold on to faith even when we can't see the full picture. God's perspective is not limited by time or circumstance. He sees the end from the beginning, and He is working all things together for the good of those who love Him. What others intend for evil, He can use for good, not just for us, but for the benefit of many. As we face our own challenges, let's remember Joseph's words. Let's choose to see our trials through God's eyes, trusting that He is at work even in the darkest of times. The broken chains of our past are not the end of our story. They are the beginning of God's redemptive work in our lives. In every setback, every disappointment, and every heartache, God is present. He is not distant or indifferent to our suffering. Instead, He is intimately involved, using even the most painful experiences to shape us, refine us, and prepare us for His purposes. As we close our eyes and envision those broken chains transforming into light, let's allow that image to strengthen our faith. Let it remind us that God's perspective is always one of hope, redemption, and ultimate good. In Him, Joseph's story is a powerful testament to faith, integrity, patience, and forgiveness. Let's explore the valuable lessons we can learn from his remarkable journey. Text overlay: Faith in adversity. Joseph's life was filled with challenges, but his unwavering faith in God never faltered. Sold into slavery by his own brothers, he could have easily lost hope. Instead, Joseph chose to trust in God's plan, even when he couldn't see the bigger picture. This faith sustained him through the darkest times, reminding us that we too can find strength in our beliefs when facing life's trials. In Potiphar's house, Joseph rose to a position of authority, demonstrating that faith can lead to unexpected blessings. Even when falsely accused and imprisoned, he maintained his trust in God. This teaches us that faith is not just for the good times, it's an anchor that holds us steady in the storms of life. Text overlay: Integrity in temptation. Joseph's integrity was put to the test when Potiphar's wife tried to seduce him. Despite the potential consequences, he refused to compromise his values. This moment showcases the importance of standing firm in our principles. Even when faced with temptation or pressure to do wrong, his unwavering integrity not only preserved his character, but also set the stage for his future success. It reminds us that our choices, especially in private moments, shape our destiny. Joseph's example encourages us to prioritize our moral compass over momentary pleasures or easy paths. Text overlay: patience in waiting. Joseph's journey to becoming second in command in Egypt wasn't an overnight success story. He spent years in prison, interpreting dreams and waiting for his own dreams to be fulfilled. This period of waiting tested his patience and faith, but Joseph remained steadfast. His story teaches us the value of patience and perseverance. In a world of instant gratification, Joseph's life reminds us that good things often take time. Whether we're waiting for a promotion, healing, or the fulfillment of a promise, we can learn to trust God's timing and continue to work diligently in our current circumstances. Text overlay: forgiveness in reconciliation. Perhaps the most powerful lesson from Joseph's life is the beauty of forgiveness. When his brothers came to Egypt seeking food during the famine, Joseph had every reason to seek revenge. Instead, he chose forgiveness and reconciliation. This act of forgiveness not only healed Joseph's family but also aligned with God's greater plan for the Israelites. It teaches us that forgiveness is not just for the benefit of others. It frees us from the burden of bitterness and allows us to participate in God's redemptive work. Joseph's ability to see God's hand in his difficult journey enabled him to forgive. He recognized that what his brothers meant for harm, God used for good. This perspective shift is a powerful tool in our own lives when facing betrayal or injustice. As we reflect on Joseph's story, we're challenged to examine our own lives. How can we cultivate unshakable faith in the face of adversity? Are we maintaining our integrity when no one is watching? Can we practice patience when God's timing? Friends, I want you to know that no matter what you're going through right now, God is still writing your story. Those challenges you're facing, they might just be preparing you for something greater than you could ever imagine. Think about it for a moment. When life feels overwhelming, when the road ahead seems unclear, that's often when God is doing His most incredible work in our lives. He's shaping us, molding us, getting us ready for a purpose that's beyond our current understanding. You see, God's providence isn't just about the big picture. It's about every single detail of your life today. That difficult conversation you need to have, that decision weighing on your heart, that mountain that seems impossible to climb, God is right there with you, guiding your steps, even when you can't see the path ahead. Remember, some of the greatest heroes in the Bible went through seasons of hardship before stepping into their calling. Joseph spent years in prison before becoming a leader in Egypt. David faced rejection and persecution before becoming king. Moses wandered in the wilderness for decades before leading the Israelites to freedom. Your story is no different. Those setbacks you're experiencing, they're not the end of your journey. They're just a chapter in a much bigger narrative that God is writing. So today, I want to encourage you to trust in God's timing, to have faith that He's working all things together for your good, even when it doesn't feel like it, to believe that your current struggles are preparing you for future victories. As it says in Jeremiah 29:11, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." God's providence is at work in your life right now. He hasn't forgotten about you. He hasn't abandoned you. In fact, He's more involved than you could ever know. So lift your head high, square your shoulders, take a deep breath and face this day with confidence, knowing that the author of your story is right by your side, guiding you towards a future filled with hope and purpose. You might not see it yet, but every trial you overcome, every obstacle you push through, is shaping you into the person God created you to be. You're becoming stronger, wiser, more compassionate, all qualities that will serve you well in the amazing plans God has for your life. And here's the beautiful thing: God's providence isn't just for you. As you trust Him and allow Him to work in your life, you become a living testimony to others. Your faith in the midst of difficulty, your perseverance in the face of adversity. These things inspire those around you and point them towards the goodness